But if we want to really live in that space of being, the best that we can be, and to create a life that really does work for the highest and best good of all life, then we really have to come to that place of oneness. When we have that awareness, we see the oneness and we see the divine in everyone, and we do it with compassion, and we can transform how we see and experience the world into that idea of love and joy. So as we're wandering along, I know that more often than not, we come across people that can be a little bit difficult for us. And I think that's a moment when we really want to say, this is my mirror. This is my mirror in front of me. And what is it telling me about me? Yeah. I think I mentioned last week about being in our own lane. You see, the only place I have power is within me, and the only place you have power is within you. And when we strive to take from each other, we're actually harming ourselves. Everything that we do, every way we react is because of something within us. So, what we want to do is recognize that we are a part of a system that includes everything and everyone. So, when I'm looking at you, I am, in fact, looking at a reflection of myself, that soul self. And I don't know if you know the namaste from the Hindu tradition. Namaste is the God in me sees and welcomes the God in you. Yeah. Spirit in me sees and welcomes spirit in you, because we're one. What you do, what you think, what you say, yes, that's coming from your individualized expression of this divine one. However, I'm doing the same thing. And when we begin to interact with each other, we start to see that whatever you're doing, if I judge it bad, there's probably somewhere inside of me where maybe I tried that once and got in trouble for it, or blamed myself or shamed myself into thinking it was bad and wrong. And so I don't go there. And so we can judge and criticize, but we want to stop that. Years ago, a minister in the US started a no complaint little journey, a 21-day process. And what he did was he created these little armbands, kind of like this one. This one says, change your thinking, change your life, just like the course that's coming up. And he created them where, it basically said something like, complaint-free world, a complaint-free world. And you'd put the bracelet on. The first time you criticize or complain in your mind or out your mouth, didn't matter which, you have to go back to day one. And the goal was to get to 21 days without judgment or criticism. Now, the minister who started it was struggling to get to that 21-day mark. So it's not like, he had it all together and all was well. No, he too had to practice that, not being judgmental or critical of ourselves or others. When we acknowledge that we are one, that we are connected, if I say you're bad, I'm saying I'm bad, because we are connected. We're not separate. I know, I'm going to swallow that. There's only one thing, and it's energy. And that energy takes form. But in taking form doesn't change it. It's like water. I can be boiling water on the stove and I can see the steam rising. I can shut it off and then I end up with just smooth water again. If I leave it in the fridge, it becomes cold. If I put it in the freezer, it turns to ice. But if I take it out of the freezer and leave it on the counter, it returns to water. Nothing changed, simply form. Each and every one of us is living in this life and we're struggling or winning, whatever's going on for us. But what we're doing is we're living from a place of separation from the divine. It's like at some point we woke up and looked around and went, holy moly, where am I and what am I doing here? What was the point of all this? And we come to a place, hopefully at some point in time, where we go, wow, I'm here. And I'm in this form for this particular part of my journey. And I'm powerful. Yes, I am powerful. I am intelligent. I am unique and special, like every other human being. So we change the narrative. We stop seeing them and us, and we see oneness. We see that our wholeness depends on our acknowledging that we, in fact, were born perfect, whole, and complete, and that anything that we're ashamed of or afraid of, or anything we think is bad and wrong, is because of the conditioning and training we received so far through our life experience. Yeah. So we can change that. Join me Wednesday night for the class. Change your thinking, change your life. That is how it works. Now, I remember years ago when I found this teaching. When I found it, I was in a little dark place. I was in a really destructive marriage. And when I found this place, it was like, oh my gosh. Like I walked in and I could feel this love. I'm like, wow, that's new. I've never had that before. I've never experienced that before. I like it. And as I began to participate, what happened was my husband at the time immediately stepped in and said, yeah, we won't be doing that. And I think the reason for it is he saw how it was empowering me. And that was the last thing he wanted. So once we split, I wanted to go back, but didn't he start going? So I wasn't able to go for a while. And then a friend told me he was no longer in attendance. And so I went back. What's interesting is when I went back, I ran into a teacher that I had in grade 10 who attended this spiritual center as well. And I was just blown away. And she shared with me a book. And the book was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Yeah. And I read that book. And in fact, I've read it a couple times and I've taught classes on it because the truth is that if I love myself enough, then I have enough love to share in the world around me and with everyone I meet. Like that's a beautiful thing. So I'm sitting back today going, wow, the journey to now has been really remarkable. And it hasn't always been easy. In fact, most of it was quite challenging. But those challenges were just reminders that I was continually forgetting who I truly am. A child of the one, a part of this infinite universe, a part of this divine creation. I'm one with it, not separate from, different than. There isn't a God up in the sky and me here. There's an energy that some people call God and some call Allah and some call spirit or energy or first cause or divine mind. Doesn't matter what we name it. There is an energy in the universe that is beyond anything I can describe. It's beyond anything that I can actually know. And so when I begin to view my life through the lens of oneness, there is a transformation that occurs that is remarkably powerful. And the same is true if I look at the world from the lens of otherness. If I see you as different than me, if I see you as broken and flawed, if I see you in some way other than your own divine perfection, I have done myself a disservice. And it brings us back to the idea of forgiveness as well. Like, how can we go about judging, criticizing, limiting other people's experience when we, in fact, have not healed our own sense of separation? And that's the piece that we're working on. We're working to come together to acknowledge that I am a creative being living a dynamic creative life, and that my imagination is the fuel source for moving it into form in a way that just might be pleasing. Now, when I'm off course, it shows up in a way that is displeasing, but it shows up anyway. So I want to talk a little bit about these events because we react to events. your neighbor yells at you over the fence because your grass is too long. And maybe that makes you feel ashamed or embarrassed because you should have cut it yesterday. And so instead of, going, oh, yeah, my apologies, meant to do it yesterday, got distracted, but I'm on it now. It's one response. But sometimes our response is like, well, it's none of your business. What do you think you're doing? You have no right to tell me how to keep my yard. I'll let it grow as long. Do we do that sometimes? Or we're driving down the road and somebody cuts us off and we give them a fancy wave. Yeah, we do stuff like that, don't we? What we want to do is we want to move from pieces into peace. We want to take all of those ideas of separation, those ideas of less than, the shame, the doubt, the guilt, the worry, all of those things that we got going on all the time because of the way we've been told we can't do this, we can't do that, no to this, no to that. We want to start saying yes. We want to start saying yes to that authentic part of ourselves. And when we do that, then we can experience some peace. Then we can experience some joy and some wonder and some awe as we look at the world from a new vantage point. Every one of us is divine. And when we wake up to the world of oneness, peace is natural. It just happens. I don't have to force it. I don't have to fake it till I make it. It's there. It's real. It's something that I can have in this moment when I give up my strong desire to be right at all times. Anybody here afflicted with that? You want to be right? What if instead of wanting to be right, we decided that we wanted to understand one another? So we come into our conversations, especially those that have conflict, we come in with a desire not to win, not to be better than, but rather we come into the conversation with curiosity. We want to understand the person that we are speaking with. We want to understand their process. We want to understand why they do what they do without judgment. And so what we're being called to do is to live in a whole new way. Because I don't know about you, but I was raised that judgment is what you do. But what if there's another way? What if when an event happens, we see it as neutral? Just neutral. And we look at it and we observe it, and maybe we look at it from many different angles or sides, and we decide, this event is good. Well, because I've decided the event is good, now it's no longer neutral. For me, anyway, it's now good. And because it's good, I might feel happiness. I might feel elation. I might feel excited, delighted. I might be joyful. But if that event, if by the time I look at all the sides of it or not, and then I respond by going, well, this is really bad, then what happens from there is that the emotion that begins to flood my mind, my heart, my everything is this idea of this is a really bad thing. And so I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I may be ashamed, I feel guilty. There's a whole lot of emotions going on, all of which are very negative. Now, if we were to look at all those positive and negative emotions, and instead of judging them as bad and wrong, began to look at them and go, so what is the message here? It's like me falling and, breaking and dislocating my shoulder and breaking it. What's the message? Well, as I go into meditation, I go, so what is it you'd like me to know today? I haven't got an answer yet, but I really think it has a little bit to do with patience. Yeah, I can be a little impatient at times. So I'm learning patience because I now have one arm to work with instead of two. So it is in dealing with that I can be peaceful with my situation, or I can be frustrated with my situation. Either way, my situation is what it is. It doesn't change because I'm frustrated. It doesn't change because I'm delighted. It just is. Whatever is going on is what it is. And what is has already been created and cannot change. It's done. So, what do we do with what's done? We go back into our divine essence. We go back into that place of imagination, that place of possibility, of willingness. We go back within and ask a question. Now what? Given this is my reality, now what? What can I make of this? You see, everything that happens to us takes us on another pathway. So when I fell and fractured the humerus and dislocated the shoulder, I got to meet two EMS workers that frankly were wonderful. They were quite amazing. We had a few chuckles in between all my pain on the way to the hospital. We had a few chuckles there while we were waiting. They're trying to, just keep me as comfortable as possible when there was no way to do that. Every position was uncomfortable, but they were fun. And as a result of that, we had some giggles. I'd find myself laughing in the midst of tears. So it's like the events of themselves have no meaning. That event was different for my husband than it was for me. It was different for my daughter than it was for me. It was different for the EMS people that came and brought the ambulance than it was for me. And it's different for the doctors, the nurses, the x-ray techs, all the people that I dealt with at the hospital. All of them got to deal with me in different ways. Now, I had a choice in all of that. I could have been an absolute bitch. I really could have. They're not moving fast enough. They're not doing things soon enough. I could have gone there because, I probably did many years ago go there. But the reality is that what is the saying? You'll catch I don't know, you'll catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. I don't know if that's the saying, but something like that. Like kindness gets you more loving energy, kind energy than the anger and frustration does, which causes people to not want to be around you. So the moments that we spend, we're always at choice. That Viktor Frankl said, there's that pause, there's that moment. There's that moment when something happens and we have that moment, that space. That space is our power and our freedom. It can also be our executioner. Because we treat ourselves pretty bad sometimes. We don't need to. It really isn't necessary. So as we're moving along, what the point of all this is that we are always at choice. Every event is unique to the person having the experience. So all of us are having a different experience this morning. Some might be hanging on to the words going, whoa, that's cool. Others might be going, yeah, I've heard this before. And some might be going, I tried that, didn't work for me. Doesn't matter. What we're doing here as a collective is having an opportunity to explore some ideas and do with them what we may, or do nothing with them. See, we're always at choice. And when we decide to do nothing, we've actually made a decision to do nothing. So this journey that we're on, knowing that the divine in me recognizes and honors divine in you, then I move into a place of love and curiosity and cooperation, compassion. I'm kind and respectful. And my world all of a sudden is filled with peace, love, and harmony. But only because I made a choice to do something different. Ernest Holmes, in our Declaration of Principles, what we believe, he wrote, we believe in the individualization of the spirit in us, and that all, underline all people are individualizations of the one spirit. Yes, one power. And when we tune in to this, when we tune into this idea, when we tune into this possibility, then what happens is we open our minds and hearts and we're able to begin to see everything in a new way. If we take a moment to pause, it's just like with the land acknowledgement. We say, here's the land acknowledgement for Toronto, but maybe where you live, it's a little bit different because we've got people on this call coast to coast and north and south. And so we want to take a moment, we take a pause so you can honor the land you're on, that you could take a moment and go, whoa, I'm on the land of the Blackfoot. Ooh, I'm on the land of the Wendat peoples, the Mississaugas and the Credit. What I want to do is honor the fact that I'm on this land, and this land has gone through all manner of change and discord and disconnect and reconnect over all these many, many years. How do I stand on it today? And can I stand on it in a place of peace? Can I begin to look around me and go, my role here is to be love, not to be Barbara, not to be Barbara Jean, not to be wife, not to be mother, not to be grandmother or great grandmother, but to be love. And what that means, love to me means oneness. And so when I forget, like when I went away for a weekend last week, just after I hurt my arm, had to go and do a wedding in Algonquin Provincial Park. That staying at an Airbnb, and the guy goes, hey, I'll give you an extra day. Nobody's coming in on Friday. I'll give you an extra day. And then Friday morning, it's like, thanks for being here. See you later. Got to be out by 10. What? No, I stay until tomorrow. Oh, no, somebody else has booked it. So in that moment, it did take me a couple of hours to get to peace, to pull the pieces together into a place of peacefulness, because I was a little upset with this gentleman. Thinking of my husband having to pack everything and do it all a day earlier when we had planned to sleep in. So we can react or we can act. And they're very different, because when I'm acting from an experience, I'm being conscious about what I think, say, and do. You see, we don't get to live in a peaceful world because nothing happens. We get to live in a peaceful world because we choose peace moment by moment by moment. Without hesitation or reservation, we start there. That is our place of starting. That is our beginning point. That is the landing page. I recognize that, yes, this individual did something I thought was unprofessional and dishonest. Whatever he did it for, that's up to him. He's creating his karma. I'm creating my own. So what we want to do in those moments is go, all right, well, I don't like it. Here's my Google review, which happens to be a 1 instead of a 5. That's within my power, but I don't have to get angry. I don't have to get vengeful. See, we have an opportunity to use the faculties within us to create a peaceful, loving, respectful world. And we do that by honoring who we are moment by moment, recognizing that I am unique and special, and that uniqueness is not bad and wrong. That uniqueness is what makes me powerful, creative, imaginative. That is what really rings the bell for me. That's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. That's the excitement, the delight of living. Constant motion. Things are changing. You ever had a week where nothing happened? Maybe you had a bad cold and you spent the week laying on the couch watching movies. You get to the end of the week and what? Yeah, now the cold's gone. Thank God. Let me get out of the house. We want to do something. We want to do something, because that sitting in one place doing nothing doesn't necessarily feel that great. The only problem with sitting in the silence with yourself is you're with yourself. And here's a hint. If you don't like being alone with you, it's a good possibility others don't want to be alone with you either. So let's take a look. Now, I remember, I'm going to share a story from a long time ago. When I was a teenager, I got very, very rebellious. My parents split when I was 11. And I was oh so angry at them for destroying my life and humiliating me beyond belief. So, did they do that? No. They ended their marriage for the reasons they have, which are theirs. And that had an impact on me. Instead of dealing with it, I vented. I got angry. I hated everyone and everything. And I brought into my life experience a lot of damage. But I didn't know any other way of doing this. I had no clue. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I took a self-help class because my boss told me if I didn't fix my attitude, I'd be fired. Didn't want to be fired, so I took a self-help class. What I learned was that there's a power in me that I can use. Did you know that? You have a power within you and you can use it. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad, but you're using it all the time. And when we use it for good, it's like it magnifies it. It's like there's this uplifting that happens that's remarkable. So I want to invite you to really think about the things you do unconsciously and the things you do consciously. When we wake up from that unconscious sleep of separation and move into a place of consciously, acknowledging oneness and living in compassion and being peaceful, when we do that, there's a shift that occurs that is beyond our wildest dreams. Between the stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl. Beautiful words. The fascinating thing is that within that space, that pause, that nanosecond, we tell ourselves an entire story about what's happening. We're telling an entire story. Where did we get the story from? Our imagination. We guess, we surmise, we make assessments based on historical things we knew. We're not coming at it in the moment as a powerful, creative, conscious being. We're coming in a reactionary phase of whatever happened to us so many years ago. It's time to change. It's time for us to pause, to slow down, to breathe, to listen to the story that we're telling ourselves, and then question it. Is this an old pattern, an old tape? Often what I'll do is when I'm having a reaction, I'll just go, when have I felt this before? And whatever memory pops up, I trust it, because that just might be the starting point for this particular belief that has been added to and added to and added to and added to over the years until now it's ready to blow. Well, instead of having it blow, I'm going to choose peace. I'm going to choose my battles. I'm going to choose to be understanding, or I'm going to choose to be curious rather than I have to be right. You've heard the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think we've all done that at some point in time, operating out of old habits. We're changing those habits. And if you don't know how to change those habits, sign up for the class Wednesday night. Change your thinking, change your life. Believe me, you will have a transformation. Whatever's going on for you, even if you took the class before, take it again, because I can assure you something's happening. Something really big is happening, and it's happening through you and through me. Dr. Holmes says peace comes from a sense of union with the whole, and confusion comes from a sense of separation. I invite you to acknowledge your oneness, to acknowledge your union with the divine, to realize that God is right here being you. It's the cells of your body, the activity of your mind. And whether you call it God or Allah or spirit, doesn't matter. It is an energy, a vibration, and really at the core, it's love, and it's good. And when we follow it along the lines of love and good, we begin to create harmony. We begin to create peace. We begin to settle into a place of greater comfort. I invite you, be the change you'd like to see in the world. Be the peace.